Okay, so basically, the Integrity is a 16 passenger yacht in the Galapagos Islands. It was one of the first upscale yachts in the islands. It's owned by a German Ecuadorian family called the Sievers, who are very hands-on. They love this boat. They look after it very well. And they have a lot to do with kind of the maintenance and the design and ownership of the boat essentially. Rolf Sievers, the head of the family, if you like, he was one of the founding kind of members of the Darwin Research Centre, so he has decades of experience in the Galapagos Islands. Working the Galapagos Islands, he knows it like the back of his hand, and they work with a company in California called Inca, who do all of their bookings and their reservations, and they work very closely together. And the head of that family is Bill, and Bill and Rolf have been friends for many years. So, as with many of our partners, Senderos partners, this is no exception in that it has a great backstory to the product, and that's one of the reasons why we really love it. Up until very recently, Integrity Galapagos was only an 8-day, 7-night boat itineraries. Now, though, they have recently launched this year 5-night and 6-night itineraries, which are part of their 7-night eastern routes and 7-night western routes. So just to give you an idea, this is the 7-night eastern route. This is the one I took last year, which was really varied and incredibly exciting. I was so fortunate to be able to take part in that. And then the 7-night route takes you around the Western Isles. I'm sure Greg will be able to tell you a little bit more about the differences between these two. And then, as I mentioned, as part of these, you get the opportunity now to be on the boat for a short amount of time. It was kind of adjusted in terms of like looking at client feedback and also the market and to see what people wanted. And although we always kind of extol the virtues of staying on a boat for 7 nights, because you get that really well-rounded experience and you get to see as much as possible on the islands. We were also aware that people and travellers perhaps don't have the time to do the whole week, and which is why they kind of launched these shorter itineraries. So this is Bill, who lives in California with his family. Marika is on the left here, and they are the guys who do all of the reservations and operations of the boat. And as I mentioned, he's very good friends with Rolf, and they've known each other for many years, and therefore know the islands at the back of their hands and have worked as naturalist guides, and so really have tried very hard to create these itineraries that kind of offer the best the islands have got for their clients. So the yacht itself is a sleek, like beautiful yacht. It's quite understated. It's always nice to kind of see it with the backdrop of the Galapagos behind. As I mentioned, it's space for 16 passengers. And it's not one of the big fancy shiny new boats, but that is it's still incredibly comfortable. There's definitely enough space for everybody. No one felt crowded. Now, the images I'm about to show you are a mixture of images of the interior, which is how the boat has been for a long time, but also renders of how it's going to be after this month. So in September, the boat is in dry dock and it's getting a refurbishment inside, which is really exciting. So this is the lounge area and the eating area behind. They're going to keep the same format, the same, design, as in like where everything is, but change the interior and update it to a more modern look. As you can see, there's loads of space. This is where everybody comes together in the evenings for like the debrief and chats and the initial briefing, but it's also a really lovely air-conditioned space for those hot kind of transfer days, really. So this is what it's going to look like. So these much kind of more modern tones are slightly more open. This bar originally was kind of a bit more closed, so it's a bit more of an open aspect, really, and just more sleek modern design. One of the nicest things about this boat, I think, are the really big windows that you find throughout the ship. Even in the cabins, you've got these very large square windows. And yeah, lovely dining area. I really liked the idea that they were in different tables like this, because then you got to change about every evening or every lunchtime and speak to somebody different on each of your for each of your meals. Again, yeah, they kind of made it more sleek, more kind of more modern. So we're really excited to see what the actual finished product looks like. Ideally, we would have had, you know, the finished product to show you, but we kind of had scheduled to this. But I'm really excited to show you the renders in any case. And actually, you know, it's always difficult seeing renders, but I think these ones are particularly good. And this is what it looked like. So you can see really how the light is coming in there. The kitchen is just beyond that wall there. Yeah, so you can see what it's like in real life, but with the original decor. So the food is really excellent on board. I thought, you know, they tried really hard with presentation and flavors and, you know, with what they've got, because as you know, you're in an isolated place here. You have only so many kind of access to different foods and resources and things, but you know, all absolutely delicious. These are a couple of my own pictures, which is why they kind of look like that. But the upstairs decking, that was refurbished about 2 to 3 years ago. So with completely new, yeah, kind of decking and furniture and barbecue area. So again, really spacious, lovely places to sit under this kind of shaded area here. Very, very comfortable. And with this lovely jacuzzi at the front to sit in whilst you're kind of traversing from one place to another. And this little spot is called the Rolf's Roost, which is a really great spot just to watch islands go by and sit and watch the frigate birds above you and again any other wildlife. And as you can see, when we were on the boat a couple of years ago, or last, I think it was actually last May now, this is everybody that was on the boat, so you can see that there is enough space up there for Greg or the other guys to give their briefings and still be under the shade. So the deck plan, this is what we have here. So that was the decking at the top. Then you've got the dining carriage and the saloon, and then on the lower deck, this is where you have the cabins. So cabins 4 to 8 are all exactly the same size, and they can be twin or king size beds. They can all be changed about. Then they have a smaller single cabin, cabin 2, and a queen size cabin, cabin 9, which is the same size, slightly different shape, but can't be converted into a twin room. Then their beautiful owner's suite at the front is apparently one of the largest suites in the Galapagos Islands, and it spans the width of the boat there. Again, the images I'm about to show you will be as the decor was, and with the new refurbishment I got some renders as well. And so yeah, it's quite important to see kind of just how spacious this cabin is, how much light comes in. They've got this very large sofa area here, which you can actually have an extra bed in if you want, but it would normally be just one single bed, and probably for a child as well. And this is what it's going to look like. So yeah, with much kind of more muted tones, a bit more modern, a different kind of wood, but yeah, still the same size. They're not moving anything around inside, and the lovely large sofa area as well. And this particular suite has a very large bathroom as well, so yeah, lots of space. And then the staterooms, this is what they were like, again with these beautiful big square windows, which meant that you got this amazing view out towards the sea and the islands at any given time. No balconies, but you know that means that you do have that extra space in the cabin as well. I felt that it was very spacious and lots of storage room too. And the windows on the outside are blacked out, so even if you are near another boat, doesn't mean that they can then look into your cabin at all. So feel free to keep kind of those blinds open, and they can be converted into twin, as I mentioned. And so yep, this is the same decor that is being converted as we speak in dry dock. This is the size of the smaller twin cabin. It's slightly more elongated than the other 4 cabins. And then this is the single cabin here. Again, still spacious with a single bed. They are actually looking at, well, no, they are scrapping the single supplement on certain departures, I think, until the rest of this year, and they're looking at it for next year as well. So I'll send details on that in the follow-up. But that's obviously a really good key selling point for a lot of clients who are not traveling with another person. I found the crew on board to be amazing. Nothing was too much for them. They were very friendly, very attentive. And then when we were out on excursions, actually, there were a couple of ladies on our in our group who were quite elderly, and they decided to stay behind and just kind of relax on the boat a bit for one or two of the excursions. And she said to me, without having even been prompted, she said, you know, it was really nice and relaxing to be on board, and she didn't feel like there was any kind of disruption when they were just going about their business, like either cleaning or preparing. There was no shouting across the decks, there was no music. And so I felt like that was really kind of quite telling as a team that works very well together and very conscious of the clients on board. And they were all super smiley and friendly and, you know, very welcoming when you come back the of the hot excursions. So I'm going to pass over to Greg in a moment if we can get his presentation to work, because we had some sharing issues earlier on. But basically, one of the main key selling points of Integrity Galapagos are the guides. I would say more than a lot of different things. And so Inca and Integrity work with mainly 3 guides on rotation, one of whom is Greg, and they are all specialists in their own right. They've all been working in the Galapagos for decades, and they are incredibly knowledgeable and full of stories. And you know, you've got this kind of expert kind of service essentially when you're on board the Integrity, which I really think makes it stand out. And because they know the island so well, they know how to operate very well, that it didn't feel like you were being, you know, lectured to every day. It just felt like a very relaxed and knowledgeable kind of experience, not least because, and fun as well, not least because, well, Greg loves to swim and be in the water more than anything, I think, perhaps. And so he encouraged us to swim back to the boat, for example, from the islands, and I just found that was fantastic. It was a very personalised experience. I've got a couple of other slides here of Greg that will fully embarrass him in his element. This is from our trip here. And this one I particularly like, even though he's not in it, but this couple who were on our trip, on our boat, they happened to have been on the, well, they purposefully booked the Integrity because they had booked it, I think it was 30 years previously. And so they had travelled on the same boat for 30 years previously, and they had Greg as their guide. So it just goes to show longevity of you know, the ship. And just before I pass over to Greg, there are 2 other guides that I want to mention as well. So Richard Polatti is another specialist guide who guides with Integrity. He is a geologist, and I've got a interview with him on our YouTube channel. Actually, that Simon took, because Simon went on it last year. And yeah, he's very, very interesting, incredibly knowledgeable as well. And then there's Patty too, who is, I think, half Swiss. And she is a wildlife photographer and also owns her own cacao farm on the Galapagos Islands. So again, a wealth of experience and knowledge. So now I'm just gonna stop sharing. And Greg, I don't know whether you were able to send me your presentation or
Yeah, I
whether...
did, and I might have. Let's check and see if this works. I'm trying to share again. No,
Okay.
it doesn't seem to work. So I sent you a copy of the presentation, so you may be able to find that.
Okay.
Yeah.
It hasn't come through on my emails.
Oh, wait, hang on. I'll try it with a different. Oh, for some reason it didn't go through on that. Okay, let's see. Let's try this. Hmm.
No, not working.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess the other thing we could do is just if you just talk to people about the experience. I mean, we will be able to link to your presentation at some point at the follow-up. Um,
Yeah. Okay. It's funny because I can see my presentation, but you can't,
and you
unfortunately.
can't. There's no way of sharing. Like when you press the button share, it doesn't come up as a window there.
Yeah, when I press share, it doesn't allow me for some reason. It's not working.
Okay.
I'll try
We
it
did
again.
try. We did try. We were on here for about 20 minutes before the webinar. So what I'll
Well,
do,
I can talk about it anyway, just
yeah,
to, yeah, it's
yeah.
better.
What I
So
can
anyway,
do with the
I don't know
follow-up
if
is
you
send a link to the presentation. So yeah.
can, yeah, I don't know if you can see me talking.
Yes, we can. Yeah.
Okay, good. So anyway, yeah, let me just use mail. Um, right, yeah, okay. So anyway, yeah. So yeah, so just a brief introduction to myself. My name is Greg Estes, and I've been working in the Galapagos for many years as a licensed naturalist guide of the Galapagos National Park Service. I have probably led more trips than any other naturalist guide in the Galapagos. I've literally guided about 1,000 trips in the Galapagos on boats ranging from the size of a small sailboat, 6-passenger sailboat, up to 100 passenger ships. But now I exclusively work on the integrity for a number of reasons, one of which is the itinerary. So on this, in this presentation, I'll be talking a little bit about the itinerary, the briefings and the daily schedules, hiking and the terrain, snorkeling, kayaking, the Galapagos wildlife. I was hoping to share with you some of the footage and photos that I've shot from the integrity. I just briefly mentioned a little bit about the integrity guides at the end. So the itinerary of the integrity is just excellent. I mean, we hit all the hot spots as far as wildlife is concerned. We visit all the major islands that can be visited in the Galapagos. And we visit about 35 visiting sites altogether in the 2 weeks. Now, the 2 weeks is divided up into an eastern route and a western route. Most people typically just do the 1 week in the Galapagos, so they do either the eastern route or the western route. But all too often, after having led a trip in the Galapagos, on the integrity, the passengers are just so overjoyed with their trip, they decide, yes, we've got to come back and do the other itinerary. So it's occasionally we do get people doing back-to-back trips, doing the eastern and western route together, but in order to see the whole archipelago. Now, when I first welcome people on board the integrity, one of the first things that I do is give a safety briefing. And one of the reasons I like working on the integrity is because safety is a priority. They have all the state-of-the-art safety equipment, and all the crew members on board have to go through a rigorous safety course, which has to be repeated regularly. I also give a snorkel briefing. Snorkeling, we have a chance to go snorkeling every day of the cruise. And snorkeling is a big part of the cruise. In fact, often at the end of a trip, I'll ask people what their highlight has been, and it has something to do with the snorkeling. So I give an in-depth snorkel briefing before we do our first snorkel. And we do have wetsuits available on the integrity, as well as snorkel gear, masks, and fins. Now, as well as the safety briefing, we're also and safety briefings that I give. We also give daily briefings in the evenings. Generally, we give these briefings after dinner. to explain what we're going to be doing the next day. So a typical daily schedule is you wake up in the morning, you have breakfast, and then you go for a hike. And then there's often an option to go snorkeling or kayaking. And then we come back, we have lunch on board. We usually have a little bit of downtime after lunch. You don't want to be going out in the middle of the day when it's hot. So we usually give people a little bit of downtime. And then after that, we go for another hike in the afternoon. And often there's an opportunity to snorkel again and kayak. The hikes, we generally spend about an hour and a half to 2.5 hours on shore. The trails, they're not very long. They're only about no more than about 2 miles long. And there's just a tremendous amount to see on shore. The naturalist guides will be interpreting the natural history to the groups on shore. But as well as doing interpretation of the natural history on shore, the naturalist guides also give presentations on board the Integrity. For example, topics that we cover: geology, the geography, oceanography, climatology of Galapagos. We talk about the human history, we talk about Charles Darwin and his visit to the Galapagos, a little bit about evolution and ecology. There is a monitor with a screen on board, so the naturalist guides can give presentations showing some of the video and the photos that the guides themselves are taking during the trip, and we give the copies of those to the passengers at the end of the trip. The terrain in Galapagos is volcanic, and in fact, all of the islands are volcanic. And we visit some amazing sites as far as the geology is concerned. For example, when we go to Sullivan Bay on Santiago Island, we visit the best example of hoi hoi lava in the world. When we hike to the top of Bartolome, you've got the most spectacular view in the Galapagos, looking down to the famous Pinnacle Rock, which is an eroded volcanic tuff cone. So some really tremendous views, spectacular views, scenery in Galapagos of the volcanic features. We talk a lot about the geology. There's also, so the terrain that we're walking on is primarily volcanic. In places, it's relatively smooth lava. Other places, it's a little bit more uneven. We're walking over rocks. And there are also other sites where we're visiting where it's basically just beach walk. So as far as footwear is concerned, my recommendation is to bring a pair of sandals, something like Tevas or Keens, for the easier walks, and then for the more challenging walks, we're walking over an uneven surface, some sturdy shoes. There are places like Bartolome where you actually have a boardwalk that's been put in, and stairs, wooden stairs, to help you walk on the trails. We are going to be doing quite a bit of kayaking on the trip. The kayaking is amazing. We have enough kayaks on board for all of the passengers. They're double kayaks, sit on top kayaks, and it's a great way to observe the wildlife when you're kayaking in these protected coves where you have wildlife such as sea lions, turtles, seabirds, shorebirds, marine iguanas. All kinds of wildlife can be viewed from the kayak. Snorkeling is, as I mentioned, is a big part of the visit to the Galapagos. With the snorkeling, one of the big highlights is to snorkel with sea lions. And just about every site that we go to where we have an opportunity to snorkel, and as I mentioned, we get to snorkel as an opportunity to snorkel every day during the cruise, at least once during the day. Every single site, there is a chance that we may come across sea lions. And we do have the most playful seal, most curious seal in the world. They often come right up to you. If you get them between the age of 3 months to about 9 months, they come up to you and check you out. And I always tell people when we're snorkeling to twist and twirl in the water, and they often come right up to you. As I mentioned, wetsuits are available on the boat, on the Integrity. And it's recommended to use wetsuits. The water temperature can drop right down depending on the time of year. We have quite a range in sea surface temperature in the Galapagos, typically going between about 20 degrees Celsius, which is about 68 Fahrenheit, up to 27 degrees Celsius, which is about 80 degrees Fahrenheit, depending on the time of year you're in the Galapagos. I'm a wimp when it comes to cold water. My cutoff for a wetsuit is 82 degrees, which is about 28 degrees Celsius. You know, and I prefer using a long sleeve wetsuit, wetsuit, and they are available, as I mentioned, on the Integrity. One of the big highlights in Galapagos is seeing the Galapagos penguin on both itineraries of both routes of the Integrity itinerary. We have a chance of not only seeing penguins, but also snorkeling with penguins. And that is a big a big plus in something that a big draw in the Galapagos, I should say. So a question I'm often asked is that do we get a chance to see sea turtles while we're snorkeling? Well, the western route of the Integrity is absolutely amazing for sea turtles. We do get to snorkel with them. In fact, I tell people on the western itinerary at the beginning of the western route that by the end of the trip, you're going to be sick of seeing sea turtles. There are just so many of them. But you do see them also on the western itinerary. Blue-footed booby, of course, everybody wants to see the boobies when they come to the Galapagos. We've got 3 species of boobies in the Galapagos, the redfoot, the Nazca, and the bluefoot. You have a chance of seeing all 3. But the one everybody wants to see is the blue-footed booby. You see them both on the eastern and the western route. And they are have the reason people want to see that booby is not just because of the color of the feet, but also they have the most elaborate courtship display of all the boobies, where they actually dance when they're courting. They also have a spectacular behavior when they're feeding, where they plunge dive and hit the water at about 60 miles per hour, which we will see during the trip as well. Frigate birds, everybody wants to see the frigate birds, particularly to see them in courtship display. The male frigate inflates this big red pouch to court the female. And both on the eastern and western route, we have sites where we have a chance of seeing that. There are 19 species of breeding seabird in the Galapagos. Some of them are just so beautiful, like the red-billed tropic bird we have a chance of seeing as well. And then of those 19 breeding seabirds, we have 8 that are considered endemic to the Galapagos. One, which you see on the western itinerary, which is the flightless cormorant. It's the only cormorant in the world that doesn't fly. And not only do we get to see them on the western itinerary, but we often go snorkeling with them and watch them as they propel themselves through the water with their feet as they're feeding. And then on the eastern itinerary, one of the 8 species of endemic seabird found nowhere else in the world is the waved albatross. The waved albatross everybody wants to see because it has the most elaborate courtship display of any of the birds in the Galapagos. They do all this bill fencing, sky pointing, bowing, bill clacking. It's just amazing to watch. And we visit the island, the only island where you have a chance of seeing that, which is Espanola, which is on the eastern itinerary. The Galapagos flamingo, that is another big draw. And people want to always ask me, are we going to get to see flamingos? Flamingos, we have an endemic subspecies of flamingo, often considered to be the pinkest flamingo in the wild, and we see them on both routes. Tortoises, we're going to be seeing on both routes as well, and the tortoises, we will see both the saddleback tortoise and the big giant dome-shaped carapace type. They can get up to about 600 pounds in weight in the wild. And one of the things that you'll notice about the wildlife on these trips is how fearless the wildlife is. They come right up to you as you're walking down the trail. The sea lions, as I mentioned, young sea lions check you out. And even the land birds will often come right up to you. There's one bird in particular, it's called the Galapagos flycatcher, which will actually land on your camera while you're trying to take a picture of it. Sometimes it'll land on your binoculars too. So there's plenty of opportunity to get some amazing photography. We talk a lot about opportunities on the integrity. The guides are all photographers themselves, and we most of you don't really need more than an iPhone on the trips. I've taken, so I wish, unfortunately I can't share with you the photos that I've taken, but you get some amazing photos just using an iPhone, as these animals are so fearless and you can get relatively close to them.
Greg, I actually have the second part of my presentation are basically pictures of wildlife that Perrin took. I know it's not the same, but I can show you a little bit about.
Okay, well, why didn't you do that? Yeah, because that
Um,
would tie in well with what I'm talking about. I mean, yeah,
well, this is the Sally Lightfoot crab, which is
yeah. Sally Lightfoot crab is, yeah. So the
everywhere.
shoreline is, you just about everywhere we go, you see these beautiful, brightly colored Sally Lightfoot crabs. There are quite a few marine invertebrates that we'll be looking at, both on shore, but and also when we're snorkeling in the water. Beautiful, bright orange cup corals as well. There's the sea lions, as I mentioned. They come right up to you. You can see the sea turtle there, the surgeonfish and
Well, there are
dusky.
huge shoals of those,
I wanted to show
enormous.
you a video. I have an amazing video of the surgeonfish and the dusky chub cleaning the back of the sea turtles. You often see that when you're,
There's
yeah,
there's
yeah.
snorkeling there.
There's there's the famous, yeah, there's the rock there. The kayaking is a big part, as I mentioned, of the trip, and you get a chance to kayak on both the eastern and the western route. It's great way to observe the wildlife.
One of
Uh,
the things I really liked about the kayaking as well was that generally you'd drop us off kind of upstream, so to speak, and you can float down along the coastline of the different islands
that's right. Yeah, we always go with the
downwind.
wind, so we're not going into the wind, and so it's so easy kayaking. These are very stable kayaks, double kayaks. And it's just, you just cruise along the shoreline, seeing all kinds
And
of
then you're picked up.
spectacular wildlife.
Um, I remember you wandering down this beach doing some sea
Yeah,
lion counting,
counting
I
the
think.
sea lions. I always do a census on that beach of the number of sea lions. We can get up to about 200 sea lions on that one
It's
beach.
extraordinary.
Santa Fe, that's the Santa Fe Island. Yeah,
Um,
there's the Nazca booby on the left there. That's the largest of the three species of booby. And we have the white-tip reef sharks. That's the most commonly seen shark in the Galapagos. People are always worried about the sharks in Galapagos, but actually the sharks are not considered to be aggressive in the islands. On the right, you can see the land iguanas that we have. We've got three species of land iguana.
the
Yeah.
sharks as well. I mean, that again is one of our pictures. I think it's one that Perrin took, and you knew kind of maybe where they might be sleeping, and it was a cave, wasn't it? And you were like, right, I
Yeah,
found it. Got to
exactly. Yeah,
be
that's the thing
very
about the,
quiet. But it
yeah,
was just extraordinary looking down at that. I was blown away by that. It was amazing.
the integrity guides know exactly where to find these sharks that are in the caves, and there's some really good sites to look for hammerheads as well. So the waved albatross, you can see why it's called the waved albatross from those wavy vermiculations in the plumage there. As I mentioned, the waved albatross endemic. It's only found on one island in the Galapagos, on Española, and it's just so spectacular if you get to see the courtship display, and we often see that when we visit that island. So that's
Great.
the last bird in the Galapagos. Yeah, there's
And
the
this is what you're talking about, the love of the geology, which yeah.
that's right. I mean, the geology is just spectacular too. And I personally have done work on Darwin's geology of Galapagos, and I do talk a lot about the geology during the trip because it's one of the most interesting places in the world for geology. As I mentioned, it's some of the most active volcanic islands in the world. And very occasionally, we do get an eruption on the islands of Isabella and Fernandina, and those can be absolutely amazing to watch.
I
Yeah.
think that's all the pictures I've got, but
Okay. Very good.
gives
Yeah.
people an idea.
So, yeah, another question I often asked is, do you have a chance of seeing whales during a trip? And yes, we do. In fact, I've had a lot of luck just recently with whales and dolphins. Just on my last trip, just a few weeks ago, we had a big pod of bottlenose dolphin that came and rode the bow wave of the Integrity. And then the trip just before that, just a month ago, we had humpback whales right next to the Integrity. We had a mother and a calf this displaying to each other. And
Would you
then
say
on
there's a good season for that then, or is that?
for the humpbacks, yeah, the season is going to be about that time. Usually August is a good time of the year. They're migrating. These are not the humpbacks that you find up in the north, up in Alaska and Hawaii. These are humpbacks that are coming from the south, from Antarctica. They come up as far as Colombia, and then they turn around and they go back down to Antarctica. Other whales, I mean, there's so many species of whale in the Galapagos, including blue whale, which is the largest whale. And I've had a couple of really amazing experiences recently on the Integrity with orcas as well that came right up to the boat. Once again, a mother and a calf. And we also get these what are called false orcas that are attracted to the boats. They often come right up to you. And we had an experience with those recently too with the Integrity. So you do have a chance. We don't always see whales and dolphins on a trip, but there is a good chance of seeing them during the trip. So maybe just to finish off, just I know you've already talked about the guides, and I personally I think that getting a good guide is going to make a trip, and the Integrity does use the best guides in the Galapagos. They're very knowledgeable, very experienced. Just to talk about my experience, I came to Galapagos originally on an expedition, leading an expedition called the Cambridge-Darwin Centenary Galapagos Expedition. It was to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Charles Darwin's death. I came to study the feeding ecology of marine iguanas. And after that, I took part in a number of scientific projects, including studying seabirds as well as sperm whales. And then I went on to write, together with my partner Talia Grant, we wrote the definitive guide, or definitive book on the Darwin's visit to the Galapagos after we had retraced Darwin's steps in the islands using his original manuscripts from the Darwin archive. Talia Grant and I have also worked as consultants on films. For example, we worked as consultants for the BBC on the award-winning 3-part series. It's the best film series on the Galapagos. I recommend anyone considering coming to the Galapagos, they should check that out before they come. And just to end, anybody who's considering coming to the Galapagos, there's only one way to go, and that's on the Integrity. So that's about all I have to say.
That's great. Thank you. I would agree, of course. So let's open up any questions. We have Greg here. If
Yeah.
anybody would like to ask any questions and show their faces, it would be great. You've got like an expert here. I know that one question that people do tend to ask, I mean, it's a difficult one, but is there a preference for the eastern route or the western route? And what would you say if somebody said, "Oh, which one's better?"
Oh, I hate that question because both
Yeah.
are excellent. You just can't go wrong in Galapagos, with those routes. I mean, as you mentioned, the owner, Rolf Sievers, who he was the one who originally set up these itineraries, and having the experience going all the way back to when tourism began in the Galapagos, he got to know the best sites in Galapagos. So he set up his itineraries to visit all the hotspots for the wildlife. And as I mentioned, I'll do a trip. I have actually done trips where we've had people do back-to-back trips, and I've asked them at the end of the trip, which was the best trip for you? And they really have a hard time deciding, because one of the things that you notice in Galapagos when you do a trip is that every single site is different, offering different wildlife, different scenic views, different experiences. So that you just can't go wrong in Galapagos
Yeah,
on the
no,
ocean.
that's fair enough. Um, and you gave us a little bit of an insight there into kind of, if you're swimming with the turtles, then that's probably kind of more prevalent on the Western. It is slightly more isolated as well in that sense. You're kind of going out
Right.
around.
Yeah. I mean, there are
around.
definitely differences. I mean, with the snorkeling, you often get clearer water on the eastern itinerary. When you go over to the west, the water is cooler because of that cool Cromwell current that comes in from the west. But the trade-off is the productivity is so high in the west. Because of the those that upwelling of nutrient-rich water. That's the best place to see penguins in the Galapagos, the best place to see sea turtles in the Galapagos. That's where you get half of all the marine iguanas in the Galapagos. And you do get some good snorkeling in the West as well. You often get a chance to snorkel. It's the only place actually in the Galapagos where you get a chance to snorkel with marine iguanas. But generally, the snorkeling, I would say the clearer water is on the eastern itinerary. So there are all these little trade-offs, depending on where you go. Yeah.
Okey-dokey. Great. I haven't had any questions for anyone, so it must have been a very kind of comprehensive uh, presentation. Um, but
Good. Yeah.
as I said to everyone, like we will follow up with an email, and your email has only just come through now, and I started the
Oh,
download, and it's taking a long time, so I'm afraid we won't be able to fit that in. But it does mean that what I can do is try and kind of compress that and also send a link to everybody that of your presentation as well, so at least they've got that to look at.
sure. Yeah, that's good. Okay.
Well, thanks so much, Greg. I know it's very early in the morning for you, so you should go and get a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
And yeah, thanks very much for joining
Abs-
us. It was really good,
Absolutely.
really
Yeah.
informative.
Thank you. Thank you,
All
everybody, for
right.
joining us. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks,
Bye-bye.
guys. Speak to you soon.